have to look hot.
You have to look what?
Hot.
Oh, you have to look hot to be on the first part of the radio show?
Yes.
You think you look hot?
Does that get on mine too? The first part?
I see. Well, we're already on, you know. Did you know that? So, hey, folks, welcome to the pre-show. Ellery's getting hot for radio. Welcome to the freak show, said Rainey from the bathtub, which is over there. So, Rainey's taking a bath. I like to call that Rainy stew. So we got about, what do we got? About 3.5 minutes before we go live. And so this is just the pre-show. We got to get everything rolling here. We got that going. Got the stream going. You can hear the echo now. The feedback. Let's see. Let's bring that down. That's my God voice. So, how's everybody doing? Hey, Susie Q. Good to see you. And Uncle Dave. Uncle Dave's waiting in the wings. And Sarah Yousuf is here. Sarah, do you pronounce that Yousuf with a oof at the end? Or like Joseph, Yousuf? Yousuf. Yousuf is basically the same name as Joseph, right? So, hey, Romeldian, good to see you too. I'm doing well too. And there's Professor Bauer. He'll be in the wings here in a minute as well. So tonight we're going to do a little round table, just a little discussing, a little talking about stuff. And in about another 2 minutes and 20 seconds, when we go live over at Odyssey Radio. So Rowan is gone for the evening at a sleepover, birthday party, her friend where she spends a lot of sleepovers. And so she won't be jumping in. Master Finn, is he here? I saw the Mr. Finn and the swords crossed over on Susie Q's post. So Michelle Kenham Free, good to see you. And by the way, if you look in the description for tonight's show, there is a call-in to the studio if you want to contribute to the conversation that's going on. It's going to be a little roundtable, but I want it to be open for people to add their 2 cents worth too. 2 cents worth directly, as opposed to us seeing it in the chat room and then repeating it.
How come you have to do radio every night?
How come you have to ask every day? I only do it 5 nights a week, and then on Sunday mornings. Because I do, basically on paper, you say it's an hour a day for 5 days a week, roughly. But then we do the after show too, the Captain's Cabin. Okay. Hey, Beth Kirkham. Up late, I see. All is well so far. No catastrophes yet today. Grumpy Stack. There he is. How you doing? You rested up in front of the fire over there at all? Having your 9 bottles of water? Sure you needed it today. So, there's Master Finn. I knew he was coming in. I knew he was around somewhere. So good to see you, brother. You know, I keep talking about these guests that I want to get on, and then we never have scheduling that matches up. So hang on, here we go. We're gonna go live, going dark.
Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to scottallenroberts.com. That's Scott with two T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad so he can take me to Disneyland.
You're listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Hey folks, welcome to the program. Happy Friday evening. This is Scotty Roberts. And I do that every time when I start. I pull myself back up in my chair. If you're watching, if you've noticed that, that's one of my little, intro habits. So, because I'm sitting here for 10 minutes waiting for the show to start, and then I start talking and I pull myself up and sit back in my chair. All right. So, welcome to the program. This is my show. That's why I can talk that way. I'm the boss here. Don't tell my bosses. And we broadcast over on Odyssey Radio, ODYSY radio.com. That's where you can hear this show in its audio format only. And at the same time, you can see the simulcast in video in 4 places, 3 of them over on Facebook, my Facebook included, Intrepid Radio Facebook, and Odyssey Radio Facebook, and also over on my YouTube channel, which is probably the best place to get into the chat room, because the fellow Intrepids are all over there right now, and they're starting to chat up a storm. So come over and join the party for Friday night. And we've got a round table. We're going to do something a little different. We've had guests on the show before, and we talk about things, and we always do it in the captain's cabin after hours, but we don't do it as much on the live radio show. And so we're going to have Professor Bauer and Uncle Dave Potter come in, and we're going to discuss, and hopefully Sarah Yousuf, if she can make it in tonight. And we just want to have a little open roundtable discussion that's a bit of a spin-off from last night's Captain's Cabin, where, if you were here, if it ever sounded heated, it's not really heated. It's debate heated. It's not heated personality-wise. So it was a lot of fun having that conversation last night, and I want to get into that tonight. And so I've got Uncle Dave and Professor Bauer hanging in the wings. But before we go there, maybe as a little precursor to what we want to talk about tonight, I'm talking about faith. I want us to talk about belief. And I want to talk about why we choose to believe the things we believe. And that came off of some good comments in the chat room last night. It came off of comments made in the discussion last night in the captain's cabin, where we're talking about, well, how do you know that? I bump into lots of people out there that express religious belief, spiritual belief, psychic belief, paranormal belief, all these different things, but they don't fall necessarily under the knowledge category. They fall under the belief category. And what I mean by that is I think there's a difference between knowing something and believing something. And this is what I want us to address tonight. And I'm taking this chance now before I have to deal with Professor Bauer or Uncle Dave or Sarah wanting to talk at the same time and answer things bit by bit. Here's the case I want to lay forward so we can all enter into this roundtable and discuss these things. Why do we believe the things we choose to believe? Be they just name the category. Call it Bigfoot. Why do you believe Bigfoot exists? And if you give a good reason, my response might be, well, how do you know that? What about God? What about us as gods? What about spirituality? What about afterlife? And all of those different things. We look at these and everybody's got an idea. But one thing I found is that we formulate our own ideas, which there's nothing wrong with thinking, nothing wrong with formulating good ideas, but then we want to expound upon those as this is the fact, this is what it is. Well, the thing is, that's what it is for you, maybe, but how do you know that that's really the answer? How do you know that is the fact of what it is? Do the facts change because you choose to believe them a certain way? This is what I want to discuss a little bit tonight. And there's a little bit of something I wanted to present before we get into it that falls into this category. I saw this article. It's very long, so I'm not going to get into a lot of it, but it was interesting. It was a thing about Sasquatch. Now, Uncle Dave and Professor Bauer and Sarah sitting out there in the wings. With more scotch, I just saw you say. Maybe I'll have to ply myself with some scotch tonight. But it's talking about Sasquatch and Sasquatch's messages to humanity. And this was Contact. It was Dr. Michael Sala, his video titled Contact with Sasquatch and Their Message to Humanity. And there's part of me that wants to mock this and make fun of it along the way, but there's part of me that doesn't, because I don't know that he's not telling the truth, that he doesn't know what he's talking about. But these are quotes of the most significant information from that lengthy message, which came to him like channeling. He was channeling Sasquatch, like the honcho Sasquatch, the big cheese Sasquatch, Sasquatch Great Spirit, whatever it is. And the message he conveyed was by a Sasquatch elder to Dawa Autawa Lomakatski, also known as Sunbo True Brother. See, I hear names like that, and right away, I tend to go, like John Ward and I, when we did this show years ago, one night we came on, we said, tonight, we're doing an all New Age show. Let's hum, let's chant, and we'll change our names. I am now Stardust Moonfly, and John is Angel Pixie Pink Rainbow. And we're going to... And we talked the whole show that way. I don't know if any of you were back there in those days listening, remember that. But that's what I think of whenever I think of Sunbo True Brother. Okay, I don't want to mock it. But he's a native of British Columbia, Canada, who's had contact with the Sasquatch most of his life, and he considers this information the most important information ever given to mankind. Tripping on the scale. Rainy emerging from rainy bath, rainy stew. Like I said in the pre-show, I like to call her bath. Thank you for that, radio audience. You were not invited to that. But she's lucky I'm on radio and there's a desk between us. But no, I like to call Rainey's baths rainy soup or rainy stew. It all depends on the day. So anyway, the most important information ever given to mankind. If I were to say, she's trying to distract me now. If I were trying to, you should come over and say at least hello after that. That deserves at least a hello. Everybody say hi to Rainey, who is now clothed.
Hi.
After her rainy stew.
Yeah.
So good to have you. You don't smell like outdoor sun and sweat anymore.
What? What's that?
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, that one still smells.
It smells like girl.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's all I got.
Yeah, have fun. Okay, bye. Love you.
Bye. I love you too. All right. There you go, folks. Since we're having a round table, I thought I should at least let Rainey come in and say hi. After all the antics, she was just pulling right there. So, Professor Bauer says, and guys, I'm going to bring you in a minute. I want to read this stuff and then get your reactions as we get into this topic. Bigfoot. If I asked you guys, Professor Bauer, think of this, Dave, think of this, Sarah, think of this. What is the most important information ever given to humankind? Would your first answer say, well, obviously the messages from Sasquatch? Or would it be something else? And I'm looking through these, and there's a paragraph with each one of these, and there's like 30 of them. But these are some of the messages where my and your people used to be close brothers living side by side in the early ages of your human species, when you could still sit in the council of the star elders. We were your elder brothers protecting and teaching you. And now it goes on, but is there truth to that? Our people, like yours, was bioengineered by the star elders, but we were born many eons before you were. Our conceptors added to the alien genetics the DNA of the most evolved and adapted species of that era. It goes on. My people was created as part of a cosmic plan to allow ancient souls of star beings to incarnate on this young planet and help it evolve into an intergalactic outpost of consciousness while discovering its many resources and life forms. This is how it starts, and there's about 25 more of those. That this is a claim by this person, the most important message to mankind. Now, it didn't say the important message from Sasquatch to mankind regarding Sasquatch. It just said the important message. So I'm going to bring in Professor Bauer and Uncle Dave, and we're going to have a little conversation about this and some other things. Welcome, guys. Are you there?
I'm here. Sorry.
Here, let me do this. While you guys say your hellos, I'm going to get
everyone.
nasty feedback because we are linked up to the radio connection, and that gives me really wild feedback, and I didn't think about that being the case ahead of time. So now I got to plug in a little headset here once I get it untangled from the
Come join us, Sarah.
So Sarah can come in.
Get in here, Sarah.
Have Sarah come in.
We need
my computer,
leveling
folks,
point
to
of
be
view.
able to do this. If you're watching, rather than just listening over on the radio station. Boom, headset in. Headset on. Now let me also put it in my ear, because that would be very helpful.
I've got to tell you that
for hearing what the heck's going on
plugging,
over there.
Just plug
and,
what you
I'm
can't hear
going
what
to
I'm saying.
remove the radio show banner because it's just in the way when we do this. Oh, we got Susie Q out there in the wings too. Let's bring her in. Hey, Susie Q. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Susie Q, if you can't hear us, we can't hear you. So there you go, guys. Let's get into this little roundtable discussion on belief, on faith, on the things we choose to believe versus the things that we can prove are things that I think there's a difference between thinking something is so and knowing something is so, or knowing things and believing things. Belief, I've always stacked up next to faith. It takes faith to believe something. That's a belief thing. That's a theological thing, a spiritual thing, or whatever you want to call it. But it doesn't necessarily have to have factual basis to it because you choose to believe it. I could believe that there are small leprechauns living in my stomach, and that's why I poop crooked. You know, you can have a belief like that.
That was really out of left field.
Yeah, that
came from an overly fertilized field of imagination.
There it is.
I thoroughly believe in angels because of encounters I've had.
Well, there it is. But see, you've had encounters. Some person might say, well, that's an anecdotal experience for you. because I haven't had that. Well, and I believe in anecdotal experiences. You can have a personal experience that nobody else has, and you believe what you want to believe out of that, what you've been proven to you exists. But if I were to be like, say, Moses, I saw God. He was in this burning bush. He told me to take my sandals off. He sent me to Egypt to talk to the Pharaoh.
But let me ask on that. Is that not an anecdotal experience? Did he not actually?
Well, that was my point. That's the point I was in the process of making. I'm Moses. I saw these things. I saw God in a burning bush, and I was the only one there. So believe me and follow me. I will lead you out of the land of Egypt. That was Moses' anecdotal experience. Nobody else knew it actually happened other than Moses himself.
Well, and God.
And God, yeah.
Whatever that is, by whatever definition.
God went back and said, my God, guys, I talked to this guy named Moses from a burning bush today.
Yeah. and I moved forward a bunch of time, and the next thing I found was this guy named Steve Jobs, and he actually gave me tablets.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Badum ching.
Badum bum.
Yeah, I could see God going back to the other gods up there, or his fellow gods. Or
Wait,
his
it gets better.
gods.
I gave him a list of 10 things that all humans must do. And they all laughed. Oh my God, you gave him the commandment thing.
Oh my God, you didn't do the commandment thing again, did you? So yeah, so we can make good humor out of this. And I used to say when I was in ministry, and a huge believer in that, I'd say, I said, God obviously has a sense of humor. If he created us in his image, then he's probably the best practical joker in the universe.
Look at a platypus.
Look at the platypus. I said, when I used to talk about the plagues of Egypt under Moses, I said, look, he sent frogs into Pharaoh's bed.
He was running out of ideas.
Tell me that's not good humor.
Look, God back in the Old Testament had some serious issues. Okay.
He did.
I mean, there was a whole lot of anger, a whole lot of spite. I mean, and a whole lot of action, because I mean, if you're God and you're omniscient and you control everything, you can screw around with your creation as you please. That's so, right. I mean, and there was a lot of stuff you kind of go, well, that seems like, if you took just the actions and the words and stripped all the theology out of it, and you just took it as a story, right? And you ran it through and you ran it through an AI, something that can pick out, consistencies and the things that you want to look for, the patterns of, some speech and the way and the tone and the emotion, all the other elements and components that make it what it is. And you could look at that and you go, well, that sounds pretty persuasive, because at the end of the day, there are two things that you kind of look for in your base filter of trying to understand what you think is true. Okay. And that is the first thing you just have to understand, because if you think about it, you'll get there. But once you hear it and you think about it, it just kind of resonates with you, or it doesn't. And that is that everything is speculation. Mm-hmm. There is nothing more true or factual than your own speculation. Sure. All the other speculation that's out there.
Strength to your speculation that makes it belief, a core belief that you're going to operate by. You and I were both in ministry, Professor. Mm-hmm. You were in Pentecostal. I was in Fundamental Baptist. We basically believed the same things.
Well, when it came we were schooled. I look at it as we were schooled on that system, on that belief structure, because there's, as you and I both know, and most of us, there are a shitload. That's a technical term. That's an analytical, statistical formula term of different types of ways to look at, interpret, and then understand the reality we inhabit. And so it really, the real question that we're talking about last night, and the focus tonight is, how do you know something is true?
That's right. And
You
by the
can
way, before
only-
you go forward with that, I just want to say,
Yes.
Susie Q, I see you out there sitting in the wings, and I've got you in the show. I don't know if you can't hear us, but we can't hear you. So you are live with us and have been for about 5 minutes. If check your sound settings and your mic settings and so on, if you wanted to contribute. So
It looks like you're shut off.
like Susie Q, yeah, her
Yeah.
screen is black. But she is in the chat room, or she is in the studio here right now with us.
And I almost took your same path. My grandfather, who was a minister, wanted me to go to seminary, wanted me to follow that path, thought that I would be good at it. And I say, and God intervened and said, "Oh, look, a theater. Oh, that's kind of cool."
Oh, yeah.
Well, mine was actually, one of those bolts from the blue that I didn't see coming, and this is kind of an interesting story, so I'll share it. It was New Year's Eve of 1980, and I was on Colorado Boulevard in Pasadena, where the Rose Bowl is, right? All the New Year's festivities for the parade and all that stuff. And I was there more than necessary or needed, inebriated between cannabis and Colt 45. And I was walking down, it was about 2 a.m, walking down Colorado Boulevard.
Is that anything like Camo 40?
Yeah. So. I am way past where I should be, but I'm still functioning. So I'm walking down Colorado Boulevard. It's about 2 a.m, and I've got about a half a joint done. And I'm walking along, and there's people, and we're passing and bobbing and weaving and doing all this. And all of a sudden the space opens, and there's this little Asian woman, which she was Filipino, and she's standing there witnessing to people.
Okay. Yeah.
And so she's trying to get them to pray with them and invite them to the church. She's about, out there hawking on the streets. And it's a perfect place to do it and the perfect time of night, because there's a lot of people that need help at that time of night on Colorado Boulevard.
Sure.
A lot of sinners in the neighborhood.
Right?
Yes.
So I looked at her and I realized I had this sense that, she's out there. She's not getting any of it attention. Everybody's like, yeah, right. Blowing right by her. So I said, okay, I feel sorry for her. So I walked up and I said, I put what was left of the joint behind my back. And I said, you can pray for me.
So I tucked all my hair up under my hat and went in to ask him why.
Why? Amen, brother. That was a good one. So she puts her hand on my chest and she begins to pray. And I'm close my eyes and hanging my head, and I've got this joint behind me, and I'm listening to her. I'm going, okay, yeah, all right, that's cool. And this joint, meanwhile, is burning down to my fingers, and it's getting hot. And I'm hoping that
feel Satan burning you.
I feel him.
Yeah, I'm thinking, okay, you got to, it's moving along here, and she finishes, and I open my eyes, and I looked out, and I realized that I was stone cold sober.
Okay.
I'm talking after a couple of 6-packs of Colt 45, probably 5 or 6 joints, one of which I had with me.
Sobered up in the length of her prayer.
In the length of her prayer.
Wow.
So I said,
well,
okay, you have my attention. Tell me who you are and where your stuff is.
I heard that, Dave.
So I got the information. I went to the church, and what was really one of those, you talk about God having a sense of humor, or if you look at it from the simulation perspective and you go, simulation does a lot of code reuse and it can be pretty funny, and it's got that kind of intent built into it as well. So the church that she belonged to was called Community Chapel.
Okay.
And it was I grew up in Downey, California.
Sounds safe.
Yeah. And it was just a few miles from where I went to high school, from where I lived and went to high school. So 4 years before that, this is New Year's 1980. This is 4 years earlier, probably in the fall sometime, I think. I can't remember. But the place that was the church now was called the Golden Corral.
Oh.
The Golden Corral was this awesome, huge, cavernous building that had a bar in the middle, had a stage on one end, and then a bunch of tables and stuff on the other end.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it was like the buffet.
Yeah.
No. This was a bar. This is a live music bar. It was the party place. Okay. And I was with a band called Maelstrom. And this is back in this is in 76, 77, right? Right about when I was turning 20.
Hence the smoking the joint. Yes.
This is when Van Halen had just come out. You had Zeppelin. You had these hair bands and stuff starting to become, and this metal stuff. And we were some mixture of that. Okay.
Okay.
Well, we opened at the Golden Corral for Van Halen.
Nice.
Before Ted Templeton got signed him up and did the contract. So cool. We had no idea what was going on then, other than this. This is what I do remember of that night. We did our set. We did okay, but we were trashed before we got on stage, and we still got through the entire set being trashed. Second, Van Halen came up, and this is one of the first shows that they used the exploding fireworks off the front of the stage.
Okay.
So they had these little canisters. They were kind of like twice the height of a coffee can, and they set them up on the front of the stage, and that's what went off. I remember fleeting just milliseconds and slight moments of being so trashed that I couldn't believe how trashed at Van Halen was, and they were pulling this off. It was like one of those moments of surreality where it's like I'm watching this, I'm seeing this incredible performance, and I know those guys are just fried out of their mind as much as I am.
And nobody set their hair on fire. I can't.
You're here,
Susie. We can hear you.
Oh my goodness! Finally, you should tell I don't do this very often.
That's all right.
It's not something you should do very often unless you're nuts like us.
Well,
the funny thing is, we don't have you on very often.
It would not let me go wireless headset, and then because my new phone has no jack for my plug-in headset.
Ah.
Oh.
So
well,
I had to go through
live
the computer
in the studio.
And here I am. Okay. Great.
Here he is. So here, let's let Professor Bauer finish his point.
Yes, sorry.
And then then we'll get to you.
Okay.
So my point is, so that was the little weird synchronicity humor thing. The place where I ended up getting started and doing my ministry. The first time I was there, I opened up for Van Halen in a just drug-induced stupor, and it was the same place. So I found that kind of like, meh, hey, that's kind of weird. But
so whatever happened with this woman witnessing to you, and did this change your life?
Oh well, yeah, it's what got me into the ministry. So I went to that church that was a club before it became a church, and that's where she was from. And I did my ministry there. I had 2 different musical ministries, had a 3-piece acoustic and then a 7-piece band. And I mean, we smoked in the recording. Thank God I got a recording of that. But that's what got me into my Judeo-Christian journey in a very deep way. Prior to that, I was following, back in the 70s, there was a bunch of these Christian preachers who were dumping tons of prophecy content on TV. It was on all the UHF channels.
Yep. I remember all of that.
And these guys, I mean, some of these guys, a lot of it was fire and brimstone evangelican approach, right? But they went through data that I went, okay, if this is what if you're telling me what it actually says and your interpretation is correct, then I want to know more. And that gets me to the 2 things that I think are the most important ways you can figure out how you determine truth. truth in something, belief to the point where you feel and know or think of it as truth. So
you think of it, you've assimilated it as truth.
Well, it becomes a part of the way in which you sense and feel and think about self. Because the most fundamental truths are the things that only, and all truths for that matter, but the most fundamental ones are the ones that each person experiences for themselves. It's what I'm referring to as you basically have a personal experience that is such that only you can experience it and know it. And when you have that basically empirical reality, so it's a personal empirical reality. So that is the only thing. Even that is subjective because it's subjective to yourself. But that's the only thing anybody has to go on. If there's been one thing of what I have been calling the knowledge apocalypse, which is the end of the curated narrative, all of the things that we've been told, the way that things work and who is who and what's what, and even the history for the most part, as we got into this discussion last night. The history, everything that we know is going through a major, we're not seeing what everybody's calling a great reset. We're seeing a great reveal, which is going to cause a great reset. And that reveal is that information and knowledge and the information that I classify in what I call the informatica, all of that information is being refreshed. It's being renewed. We're getting a boatload of new information that is fundamentally changing a boatload of paradigms that people use to interact with the reality they perceive. So the first thing is,
if you see what Sarah said here, I threw her post up, is truth perspective or a construct that's held as a standard? I think
it depends on how truth is applied and where it's applied, right?
I want to bring Susie Q in too to talk before you get to your second point.
Yes,
because she's been waiting patiently for a long time. I'm gonna take her off mute. I only had her on mute in case something blew up on her end. So, how you doing, Susie Q?
If I'd have known, I would have coughed a few times.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, I had you in the studio. So what's going on? What's on your mind?
So I don't know. You asked me a question last night that I thought I answered in chat, and you weren't.
I may not have seen it. I don't always read the chat as I'm talking.
No, you got into it
in pieces.
You told her she was wrong.
Pretty much.
On one thing, yeah. I know that, Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
I didn't know if you said I didn't answer your question.
No, I obviously didn't answer yours to your satisfaction.
Okay, what was
your question?
The question
was what was my truth and why I believe how I believe.
Okay.
And your own Bible tells you this.
Your own Bible tells you this?
Yes, your Bible or the Bible.
My Bible. The Bible.
Yeah.
The Bible tells you.
And I apologize. I don't mean to lump you in with.
No. That's okay.
I've come a long way from this journey, from being a born again Christian and being on my knees and being subservient to a God. I'm not subservient anymore.
I get
that. That's how I feel. And
now,
let me.
Where did I cite you as? Where did I say? I remember saying, "Oh, that's."
You said it can't be that because I said that it's my truth and my reality is I am the daughter of the Most High. Okay. I used to put in chat all the time, Jesus is my brother. I do not worship him. I love him. I appreciate the fact that he gave his life and all. Somebody killed him for my quote unquote benefit. I didn't ask him to do it. I don't need him to do it. I don't need to go through him to talk to my Father. I will not go through him to talk to my Father. I am the daughter of the Most High. I am a goddess, and I claim it. I claim Jesus is my brother, and I love him. And I don't like what the Romans did to him. But the construct, please don't interrupt.
I'm not trying to interrupt. I'm trying to just respond to what you're saying.
Well, I'm trying to make a statement first. I'm trying to make a summarization of how I feel, sir. Please. Okay. The Bible puts us up there, says us we are the true children of the Creator. Now, if you're an offspring of something, if you're an offspring of a lizard, you are a noob. You turn into a lizard. If you are the offspring of a goat, you're a goat. If I am the offspring of the Most High God, that makes me a goddess by sheer definition. And I'm not going to argue the point. I know I have power in my prayers or the things I ask the Creator for. I don't do magic spells. I do deflection things, but I don't go for any of the construct. I know the Bible is predictive history. It's going to tell us when the floods are coming, when the fire and brimstone's coming, because it's all been done before. And I'm really tired of the whole subterfuge in the Christian world and telling us how we have to live and that we have to be on our knees. And I love my Creator. I thank Him for everything I have, everything. And He gives me things daily to prove to me He exists. And that I don't have to answer to anybody else but Him. And it's a him or a her. I have to give the female credit. I can't believe that we exist without both of them, but I'm not going to argue that point unless you want me to. But I don't.
Susie, can I
divine.
Can I add something to what you just said? Just from it's my own personal, my referential data. The church that I ended up in from that encounter on Colorado Boulevard on New Year's Eve with the little Filipino woman, and her name was Soul. That just, I went, okay, there's something going on here I need to go find out about. The pastor of that church was a female, and she was very charismatic, Pastor Esther. And, she, if you understand and know about the Pentecostal part of the Judeo-Christian lineage, right? You've got Baptists on one end, which is very literal and don't believe in any, don't subscribe to any of the magical stuff that happens. Mm-hmm. Pentecostals embrace all that shit and they add to it. Okay. Mm-hmm. So the healing of
all from the same book,
right? But my point is that when you use that as your point of reference,
yes.
Okay. Then you view the world accordingly. Because as you said, everything that you, I think you said this, correct me if I'm wrong, but everything that you need to know about what you need to know is in the book of No, which is the Bible.
I would say that it has that there's lots of truth in that book, just not all of it. That it's been made to control man.
I hear statements like that, Susie Q. I've heard dogmatic statements all through my Bible school and ministry days 40 years ago. I hear them all the time nowadays. I hear everybody's got a theory. There are other radio people that have theories about but they present it as fact. Now, I am not going to, I don't want to offend you or your religious or your spiritual sensibilities. That's not what I'm out to do here. But when I hear you say, I am a child of the Most High, I am this, I am that, and I go, that's great. That is your personal belief in something. And I don't want to detract from that. But if I were to be in a discussion with you about it and say, okay, I like what I'm hearing from you. What do I need to know about that to attain that for myself? One of the basic questions I would ask is, how do you know this is true? And you could say, because it's true for me. And I see the results by prayer and so on, but that doesn't cut it for
my
people.
Answers and my manifestations of the things that I need in my life, and I'm not going to get into my personal needs, but they have come like a waterfall. And I have not needed to go through any, I mean, if we just go to remember a long time ago, you asked me about Great Spirit and going to the mountain. That's when I found what I think was God at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
When I realized that I'm going to be like Fawn, I'm going to challenge the troll or the monster and tell him I'm just going to see Great Spirit. And I'm going to love you all the way through and past you. I'm going to walk right by you because I love you. And you're going to let me go sit to that mountain, and I'm going to go sit next to my father and mother. Because I think there might be two, but I don't want to argue that, right?
Sure.
So, but yeah, I have no quarrel with anyone. The book has taught me how I couldn't even get into that book very hard because of the things of the bloodiness of Genesis, the bloodiness of the Old Testament. When I was, if anything, it chased me right out of it. The simpleness.
That's
of
frankly,
the bird,
I had that same experience.
If the bird sitting out on the tree that seems to talk to me, but I don't talk to the birds. That's not what I mean. But he's just out there talking, right? He wants his breakfast. Yeah. He's a cardinal. He wants his breakfast. And just knowing that when I need something, and I cried and mourned over Jesus. I mean, I literally mourned him when I felt I lost him. And now I've gotten him back. It's come full circle. It's come full circle because I can love and embrace and keep him as the best thing and the best part of me. The teachings of Jesus to forgive everyone unconditionally, no matter what. They slap you again, and you just do it again. And then maybe that leaves me vulnerable, but I'm not vulnerable because I have swords and I will stop someone. You understand? I'm not going to let it only goes a couple of times. But but the point being is if someone's truly of a youthful age, or their truly intent was not to hurt you, or they're truly sorrowful, then I can find forgiveness, and I can find and forgive most anything, as long as you didn't actually murder me, I guess, or
sure.
You know, I do
believe.
Well,
there is. We were always taught in my circles that forgiveness is a very different thing from what's the word I'm looking for? While Jesus and the New Testament may have taught us to forgive, they did not alleviate us from consequence. Forgiveness doesn't alleviate from consequence. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been the whole system put in place in the New Testament of salvation, born again, all of this. So I look at those things and I say, forgiveness must mean something different. Because if Jesus said, Father, forgive them for they know not what they do, was he speaking in context to those who were crucifying him? Was he speaking to the people standing around him mocking him? Was he speaking to all of humanity through all the rest of time? I don't know. The words he used seem to indicate contextually in the there and the then.
Maybe that was his final report.
Maybe that was his what?
Humanity. Maybe that was his final report on humanity.
Maybe, but I could only speculate.
In essence, to say you don't have to wipe them off the planet; just forgive them. They don't understand what they're doing.
Well, see, but that's a speculation. It doesn't say that.
But that's what the narrative actually implies. Because if you look at it, just sans all of the theology and the stories and the mythos that are wrapped around these creative stories that are just recycled stories from eons ago.
Absolutely,
they're all the same thing, and that's one of the things that is both a blessing and a curse about first principles thinking and critical thinking, which I go on ad nauseum about as much as possible, because I think those are the two fundamental aspects of the way that we think and we understand the thought process and the thought streams we go through.
True.
That will at least give us the opportunity to add to the information stack that we have on anything that we think we know, because this all goes back to you're only going to feel that you know and feel confident in something if you feel that it's true for you. And that is all speculation. It's individual speculation. It's the most important speculation that any of us can subscribe to and be involved in.
Well, are you familiar with Wayne Watson in the music scene in the Christian world? He's a Christian songwriter. very prolific in the 80s and the 90s, and I think up and even into the 2000s. But he wrote this song called Would I Know You Now? And that's what comes to mind a couple of times as we're doing this conversation. And more than just tonight, the word said, would I know you now if you walked into the room, if you stilled the crowd, if your light dispelled the gloom, or if I saw your wounds, saw your thorn-pierced brow, tell me, would I know you now? And then it's got this bridge in the middle. It says something like, or have the images I've painted so distorted who you are that even if the world was looking, they would not see you, the real you? Have I changed the true reflection to fulfill my own design, making you what I want, not showing you forth divine? Now, that was the question Wayne Watson asked. And that's one I asked. I use a variation of that point, a paraphrase of that. Have I changed the true reflection to fulfill my own design, making you what I want, not showing you forth for who you are? And I think that's the pit we fall into with religious experience and religious choice and religion. Maybe that's the free will, is that we, and again, not to offend anybody's belief, I'm not picking on any particular one. But when I say, well, I've chosen to believe this, and that's what I now believe. And I would ask the question in return to anybody, well, how do you know that's so?
Can I finish
you picking something that exists and changing it to fit your own design?
And Susie, yes, I'm sorry I started that little sidebar. That was not my intent. What I was hoping to do was understand you more.
Well,
in that the things that you've experienced, and this is what I wanted to say, and I'm sorry that we squirreled. The things that you experienced about the love, about the connection, about the manifestations, for the affirmations and things that you have experienced. I not only experienced them before I got into the Christian religion, but when I switched over to, I follow a Taoist philosophy, and I've been doing that since the mid-90s, so about 25 plus years.
But
and
if
all of those experiences, all of those experiences, I'm going to bring you back to it. All of those experiences that you expressed, I've had them not only before, but also during my Christian sojourn, and even more so since I've become following more of the Taoist philosophy. So I understand and appreciate and respect, is what I'm saying, those things that you just expressed that make you feel a part, a goddess, a daughter of the Creator. I have felt those same things as not necessarily as a son, but as an offspring, as a piece of the consciousness of the great that which is, that has made that which is. Because there are so many different versions of it, they all have the same common theme. There's some intelligence, some consciousness, some overlord thing that is responsible for all creation. So,
we'll you know what we'll do? We'll be out of time. Wow, it's already 53 minutes past the hour.
Show.
Here's what'll happen, Susie Q. If we run out of time, because in 3 minutes we're out of here, we just stay live and we go into the captain's cabin.
I know, but I'd like to finish my thought.
All right.
Pretty please. It wouldn't matter if he didn't exist. If Jesus never existed.
Mm-hmm.
In my walk, it doesn't matter, because at least of what I was taught and what I learned. I understand that the historians or the people that decided to run the show, and they're out there, we need a rule book. Otherwise, things run amok. People have no direction. I get all of that. But as far as having to take that mantle on, I released myself of that. And I've manifested more from just talking straight to the Creator than anything that's ever happened to me. I'm of a clearer head. I fear no death. And I will always hold my brother close to my heart.
Hear, hear.
And
amen.
And when they burnt Alexandria Library, I get very bad goosebumps when I say that. been trying very desperately, and I'll give you a little heads up here on YouTube. You can watch Cleopatra. It's 4 hours. I can't get past the first hour and a half because I get sleepy because it's 4 hours. Right?
So you should probably look into the information available for that, Susie. There might be something in the road.
Babe, please. Now, what I'm saying is,
you got about 20 seconds,
and
we got to go out.
Affirmation to watch Cleopatra be the Isis in her opinion, and that was before Jesus. That's all I got.
And let's leave it there. Stay right there, Susie Q, because I want to hear more. Folks in the radio station, we got to say goodnight. So live long and prosper. Stick around for the Captain's Cabin.
Join us on the YouTube.
Like Dave said, join us on the YouTube channel.
What they said.
Stick around and we'll see you in a bit. Good night, radio audience.
Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid Radio Program. A Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with 2 T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad so he can take me to Disneyland.
Well, welcome to the Captain's Cabin, y'all. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sticking around. And we had to break for letting the radio audience go, but we're right back here in the same place for the Captain's Cabin. And Susie Q, you were making some, I don't want to say you were making a point. You were just talking about your experience. Let's pick that up kind of where we left off with that and talk about what you're thinking and what you're feeling.
Well, like I was saying, I've just released myself from all of the Abrahamic baloney. There was a creator before there was Christianity.
Right.
There's been a lot of gods or people that or they thought they were gods, and I honor all gods. That's I want to just say that I have no quarrel with any entity that the creator has created, or any creator I have no quarrel. It's like when I come across anything that's spooky to me, I pretty much tell them, move along. These are not the droids you're looking for.
Love
And I
for
just
all
basically,
simply is love for all.
yes, but I have no quarrel, but I do not want to engage. Like if I felt there was something crawling on my ceiling, I'd please politely ask you to leave, and then I would authoritatively say, you must leave. Because all good things, like I used to say, nothing of evil is allowed to be here. Now pretty much I have to blanket the house is clear, and then whatever flies around outside is whatever. Because we do have orbs here, a lot of them, in our home. Our home's about 100 years old. It's an original, I almost knew the lady who owned the home, that built the home. But there's a lot of history here. We're right butt up against Iroquois County. So the Iroquois Indians, there's probably a lot of energy here. I also live surprisingly on one of the highest spots in central Illinois. Strangely, for a flat land, with elevation is here is like almost just under 8.
Yeah, Illinois is fairly flat.
It is. But all of Illinois would have to flood for me to get it. So I feel pretty good.
That's good.
I feel pretty good. And I'm pretty far from the Mississippi.
So bring it, she's saying.
All I'm saying is, I'd love to have a barge. I believe that the flood will come. I believe there will be another flood. People say that, it's going to be fire this time. Well, it's going to be fire and brimstone and floods. And if the Cascadia goes, and, there's lots of things that happen. Mm-hmm. The world starts again. And I also want to tell you that I believe in off-worlders. That I believe that there's always been sky gods, and we are not less than, they have made us less than them. They have downplayed our gene pool and our DNA and shut off things and groomed us and hybrid us and made us. I believe there's something out there doing that. They're taking our divinity and our creativity and squashing it and making us slaves. That we are I don't want to ever tell a big God that I am a big God. I'm a demigod or a little God. I don't presume to be anything all powerful past what I want for me. I'm humble God, or if that's what you would say. I don't have any big aspirations to hurt people or live in a mansion. I just want enough, and I want enough to help others.
Susie,
That's all I've ever asked.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So I, having been, both through, as I went through my Judeo-Christian belief systems, I explored Eastern systems, ended up in the Tao or Tai Chi and Taoism about 25 plus years ago. That experience for me had all of the elements, as I mentioned before, that you experienced through the belief system of, what's in the Bible, right? Is that make sense?
Well,
so
sure.
So in my path, as I actually, before I got into even the formalized belief system modality and journey that I took, I had the sense that, this whole outside the planet thing was more than what we were told. So I remember watching, in fact, I recorded the live broadcast of the moon landing on a small, and I have no idea where I got this, but it was an incredible synchronicity, universal simulation, wink of the eye, if you will, of what I would do later in life. But I recorded that entire broadcast audibly on a little reel-to-reel machine.
Oh, wow.
And it was lost long ago, but I remember sitting there watching. It was in the afternoon. Sun was going down. We're sitting, my brother and I and my dad are sitting in front of the TV watching the live broadcast. And I've got this little recorder. I'm going, whoa. Later, I had no idea I would become a musician, a producer, a recorder, record engineer, and all of that. But that was one of those things like, and I remember it like it was yesterday. So I always thought that when they went there, what they were going to find, and what they had probably already found, even at that age of, I was 12 then, that there was going to be this great reveal. They're going to find buildings or spaceships or somebody else up there. And I have had that sense ever since. When I saw Star Trek in 67, I think it was when it came, or 66, I was like 9 years old. I was like, I'm done. That's where I'm going. That's
we
where
are
we
the
need to go.
Martians, Professor. We are.
And that's what I said last
are
night.
The Martians.
Exactly.
Yes, I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you, because see, this has happened in these planets before, and then when we clash in millennials down the road with the Andromeda system, everything's really going to be screwed up here.
So,
but this is a natural course. Everybody fears these end of the world events. I personally, I want to tell you, all you radio listening audience, don't be afraid. I truly believe it's just like when you go to sleep, and if the only thing you're gonna fear on the other side is you. The darkness, that if you don't get to be with others, it's maybe because they don't want to be with you. That's in my theory, just theory. But I feel that the demons we're looking for are the one looking in the mirror, the one that tells us that we're not good enough. Us, the one that, if we cannot live with ourselves alone in the darkness, after all of this is over, if you cannot live with yourself, what you've done here, how you've lived your life, has just, even if no matter how poor you are, just as long as your intent was good, if you've done your best in the circumstances you've been in, it's how we live this life. And love yourself first. Everybody forgets that. And it's hard for me all the time. It's so hard because the world looks at you and judges you on how you look.
That's only if you let them give you, if you give them that power. In other words, one of the things, once I realized that the concept in my mind, the thought stream that I don't recall who constructed the main idea, but it goes like this. Once you accept your faults, no one can use them against you.
Absolutely.
And the key there is, what are those faults and how are they defined? If you let others define those fault characteristics, then you are simply giving them the ability, the power to control the way that you perceive and think of those things. There's no more perfect example than the entire, I guess you would put it under the beauty industry, right? There's all of the elements, and these are all key natural habits and the nature of consciousness and the way that we think. They use all of this imagery, words and connotations and sounds and emotions, emotive content that comes from the sounds and the images to help to form your opinion, to form the way that you perceive and view things. And this goes right back to, and you can see it across any domain of knowledge, any part of the social fabric, the cultures, the civilizations that we've talked about this a number of times, Scotty, because of when you look back at the data that we currently have and perceive and speculate to be true, there's a recurring pattern. There's a cycle. There's all kinds of commonalities of characteristics and natures in the way that they unfold throughout all these mythos. So whether you're taking the Bible, and this is one of the things I'm trying to get to, Susie, and I'm sorry for the rabbit hole there, but here's something that's interesting to me. You perceive and you believe that what you are, the definitions you've been given in the Bible about being a daughter of the Creator, being a goddess, ergo, that definition in that set of information, that book, is something you subscribe to. On the other hand, what's not in that information is your apparent belief, or at least perspective, that we are the Martians. There was an entire history that's way back that we've got scant information, but some very, what you could consider at least compelling information about this, a history that's completely different than what we know.
Yeah.
Those are two. That's
we are controlled demigods. They have taken our some of our abilities away from us. That's because if they were all there, right? What happened?
You're still there. Okay. I hit the wrong button.
It's okay. But I think they've taken our abilities away from us.
Well, how did
because only so many can go. Only so many can go. They don't have enough ships to get us all off this planet. Either we're going under or we're going out.
Well, that's only
I do
that's
believe
only true. Let me just interject on that. That's only true based on what we conceive as our understanding of the materium. In other words, the science and the physics and all the shit that define our reality and how that metrics in the matrix actually works. They have been proven not only at a minimum very speculative, but the predictions, which is what something, and this is the other thing about the reality of knowing something that is true or having a sense of something is true. And I'm sorry, Susie, I want you to get back to your point, but I really want to say this. Okay. It's really important to realize that regardless of the information, the knowledge domain, the experience, the data set that you want to understand, whether it's the Bible, whether it's music, whether it's some of the arts, it doesn't matter what it is. There is a set of data that has been kind of codified. It's been set in. There's a place. It's in the UK. I think we actually have one here called the Institute of Metrology. Metrology is keeping track of all the metrics. How do you define shit? What is the information around it that makes it so?
Well, just a belief in a God, in a creator, in being a daughter of a God or a son of a God or a brother to somebody else, that's all codified already. We've just eliminate certain aspects.
Is it really? Is it really?
Accept others.
But is it really codified in the sense
that that's what we believed since the beginning of time? There's a creator.
But all that shit keeps changing. Remember what I said, and you know this well as John. We are one turnover of the spade for a discovery that will completely change everything that we know.
Sure, but that happens with things that have been codified for thousands of years too. You could have something codified for thousands of years and turn the spade over in 2 seconds and it changes everything. I get that. So there is a codification that exists. I think every belief system that has its basis in the Abrahamic religions or its basis in the Judeo-Christianity which is Abrahamic. It's even Susie Q, having a very different mindset about things, is still within that codified box of accepting there's a creator, there is the sun.
It works too well.
Yeah, but she's also got this whole. She understands the concept and at least the theory that that we potentially were and are the Martians. There's all kinds of other components of that. And Susie, I don't know if you heard last night. I was
in all society.
It's in there. My father's house has many rooms.
Sarah Yousuf, I want to hear
Sarah. Speak up, please. I'm getting tired of interrupting.
Sarah, I've got you. I coaxed you to come into this, and we've been talking so much that we haven't allowed you in. I'm curious as to where your head's going on all of this.
Well, mostly just taking it in. So, I mean, if we're going back to what we consider finding the truth, whether you're using, holy books like the Bible or people who don't, because there's all sorts of people in the world. It's going to have to be something really simple in that, we generate hypotheses, and through validation, the validation of those hypotheses becomes what the truth is. So, it's like Susie was saying, she, in her views on prayer and, gaining strength through her belief system, that's her validation. That's supporting the fact that what she believes is true.
Because the turnaround is too fast. It's way too fast for it not to be straight from who I asked.
Right.
I'm sorry, I missed part of it. The turnaround you said is too fast. I'm not sure if I follow you.
I literally manifest what I need. And I'm humble. I'm not a rich person. I'm a poor person. But when I needed things to help me in my life, things that would be unusually expensive. They just fall into my lap. It may take a year
Same
to get,
here.
or
Yep.
it may come
Agreed.
Yeah,
extremely
we're all poor, and we've
quickly.
all seen that. Yeah,
I
to a
mean,
certain
but
extent.
amazing. And I'm kind of a giver. It's been a fault. But at the same time, karmically, I get it back tenfold. So this is how I've been living. And ever since I got on to talk to Scotty and Rocky over abortion, which never really got finished,
That was a long time
but
ago.
that was, but that's the only reason I have a YouTube channel, is because I wanted to discuss all the children of incest and all the ones that were marched in there against their will. And now we've seen that come to fruition over the years now that things are coming to light out in the world. So I don't even have to make that argument now, right?
Yeah.
They're literally pushing them in the door. So we all have an ability to be the good person. We all have the ability to ask the Great Spirit for guidance and for the Creator for gifts if we need them. I don't ask for things I don't need. I don't ask for a shiny red sports car. I've got a 2000 solid body from Colorado, $2,800, 10 to 12 years ago car. It's solid. I put hardly any miles on it. I live in the country.
Susie,
But that's all I
can
need.
you describe what that experience is like when you ask for, having basically a
Okay, how about
ask
just
for
looking for
obeisance?
something?
Yeah, what's that experience like?
I still get goosebumps when I hit Target.
When you go to Target, did you say?
Yeah, when I hit Target, when something is moving to me, like I was so scared to get on here tonight.
Okay,
And then I get the
that's
goosebumps. I get the goosebumps. I listen to you talk. The messing up with the mic was supposed to be just that, so that I had time to warm up, to feel like I was just part of the conversation. I finally got my face up there, and then I got my basic computer mic to unmute, because I keep that off at all times. That was what was going on, because I don't want it listening to me, just like my camera's covered up. It's like,
So when you have that experience, is that something that I'm really curious about this?
I know who it comes
from. So when you experience that, is it something that occurs in what you would consider your mind? It's in your consciousness, right? You're thinking about it, you're visualizing it, but it's occurring in your mind. Do you have a sensation of where that is? Do you feel like it's in your head? Do you feel like it's outside or even within
No, I
your
feel
body?
like it when I'm talking. I don't feel like I'm outside of my body when I'm talking to something, if that's what you mean.
So
But I
you
can get
feel
a
that.
surreal feeling. Like I smoke pot. That's what I do. I quit drinking about it's been a while, maybe 7 years ago now, because I used to drink too much. And I still like Ice House, and if I want to have some, like when the Marines died in Afghanistan and the boys didn't come home when the withdrawal happened over there, I had a beer for every one of those boys. And I don't drink anymore, but I did. I did.
And when you did that, were you visualizing each beer an
them
individual
boys. That's right.
of them?
Yes. They were a group to me. It wasn't
Yes.
one for each. We were sitting around like the guy. Oh gosh, now I got goosebumps tonight. Anyway, but yeah, it was like hanging out with the boys, because when I lost the guy that taught me how to ride motorcycles and all that stuff in 2004, I lost a father figure. And after that, it was just like I went into a terrible depression. I went and bought my husband a $10,000 motorcycle with no money. Just put it on a zero card, and I had a minimum. I just worked for the state. I didn't make a big, but the payment was low. But that's not the point. It's something you don't do. It was out of character for me. So I went to see a shrink, and because things weren't right, I've always had things that I saw things when I was a child. Now I have the ability to not see those things. And I had to come into my goddess to get rid of those things. I was a tortured soul. And I don't see a psychiatrist anymore, and I don't take any stuff. I have a nerve pill if I need it. but I didn't even take a nerve pill before tonight. But I did plan to be here. I tried to.
Well, that's good. I hope we're not too nerve-wracking here.
No. But I tried because me and you've had conversations before. So all I have to really do is think about it being a conversation, and it's just us. It's just us guys. I'm not even looking at chat right now, so I won't have those.
Sure. Well, I have an old pastor friend of mine, and I may have mentioned this before in my show.
Really?
At some point, but he said to me once, I asked him when I was going through a bunch of crap in my life. I also asked him when I was writing some of my books, and somehow the question came out, and I said, well, what is God trying to teach me through all of this? And it was through some of the hardships, and Dave, you were there when all that was going on almost 30 years ago, 25 years ago. Yeah. There was also the writing of the books, and it was changing the way I thought about things. I was researching, and it was changing the way I believed things. And I remember talking to him, and I said, I'm going through this. I said, this is a little nerve-wracking because it feels like I'm turning my back on my old beliefs and so on. I said, what's God trying to show me here? That was because that was my canned question for those kinds of things. And I remember my pastor said, and this was extraordinary for me, coming from a man who was a pastor, a very good pastor of a very good church for many years. And he says, well, Scott, he says, maybe God's not trying to show you anything. Maybe this is just life. He says, there doesn't have to be an esoteric, God-given, creator-driven message to everything you do. He says, sometimes God just says, this is your life. What are you going to do with it? And he's not
that
trying
being said, God is more than just
he's not out to change what's going on. He is, or to give you a message to change something. He's just saying, this is your life. Dave, what was that?
That being said, God is way more than just what's in the Bible. Even to what Susie was saying earlier. I had a conversation one time with a evangelical out of California who was all about, if you don't follow this way, you are excluded from heaven and all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, you have a really vile God. And she was like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, he must be really spiteful to put 1 billion Chinese out there just to laugh at them when they die.
Yeah.
It's like to assume that only your path is the only path to salvation. That's just craziness.
Yeah,
if he's the creator of all, he's not going to exclude all those people, all those souls.
It's like when we were talking about the AIDS thing that came up the other day, and how that AIDS, I know the Christian community, the conservative Christian community, the religious right, if you will, came and said, well, this is a judgment of God. They should all die. And I thought, does God hate all those people you're saying? Because of their sexual orientation? Because you don't like where they are? You have chosen to put on God the attribute of hating them and wanting to kill them all? Well, maybe based on the flood and stories like that in the Old Testament.
There's somebody who doesn't understand the concept of love thy neighbor.
Right. I agree.
Matthew wanted to say something.
Matthew, you're here. You are in the chat room now. You've been sitting in the wings. What's on your mind, brother?
I was just listening to the overall conversation about beliefs and so on, because I was watching a series there on, I think it's called Prophets and Kings or something like that. It's a new series on David's life or some that they made. The book of Samuel, and things like that. I remember you went through the life story of David when I first saw you on YouTube. And there were episodes. Even actually had a little clip where that I had Saul's wife and Hinnom actually trying to play it to David in the show, and that was a little interesting because.
Oh, are you talking about the dramatized series? It was a series that came out a couple of years ago about David.
Yeah.
They stopped it really quick.
Prophets and
Kings. The only actor I recognized in that series was the guy who played Saul, and Dave Potter. You'll probably know who this is. He's played in many movies. British actor. He kind of talks like this. He was like in King Arthur as one of the knights. He's been in all different. He played Henry VIII a couple of times, He's real stocky build, and he talks like an East Ender. And, they've got him in all these old historical movies where he's like, oh, let's go raid the castle then.
Yeah.
But sorry, Matthew, I know the series you're talking about. I saw that series. Especially
I've never seen
when
it
you
before.
mentioned Ahinoam, because I thought that's one of the few places I've seen that account mentioned in that way. David stooping the king's wife, and this is why the king wanted to kill him. And by the way you know that this is so is later in the accounts of David. Ahinoam, the former wife of King Saul, comes over and becomes his wife. He takes her with him into the wilderness. Why did Saul chase him? Because in ancient times, that was an insult. That was the greatest insult to the king. And that was a way for David to try to show that he was the chosen leader of Israel. Yes, sleep with the king's wife. So anyway, you were saying, by the way.
Well, I can view it either way. I could probably think on if this happened historically that she may have played up to him. In his story that I was watching, to say that it had intrigue, and somebody actually saw, and I'm trying to play it with him, and probably may have exaggerated it a bit and whisper and tell Saul about it and made him more furious. So that could have been what happened, because I know that he's very close with Saul's son Jonathan as well too, because Jonathan is very close to him, and there was
you have to think of the context to that story. You're talking 3,000 years ago, Middle Eastern monarchs. They had a little different way of doing things. Their diplomacy was a little different. So.
Yeah, because there's an instance where that Saul screams at Jonathan and says, "You've chosen your son Jesse to your own shame, and shame your mother's nakedness," and so like that, and because he was hiding David, and so some scholars think that it might have been a lot more behind the theological wraps of the stuff, what's happening behind the scenes, in the theological story. Yeah, because I said to myself, Saul chasing him and he's sparing Saul's life, and Saul keep acting this way. There's got to be something more going on, So
well, Matthew, to that point, one of the things that I think is extremely important and not considered, that doesn't get the consideration that it should, is the Arabic and Islamic what happened, their influence in the medieval period. Okay. We were talking last night about literacy and numeracy, and they took science and mathematics and things to a level and a societal organization that was extremely powerful. I mean, it was very effective in the way that it not only developed itself, but the way that it influenced. That's why we had, all the different periods of the Crusades and so forth. But the Islamic infiltration, in the sense of its expression and its spread, that happened during the Middle Ages from 800 to about 1200, was uniquely profound. I mean, it set up a lot of the math and a lot of the systems that we use today.
Sure.
Algebra.
The whole mathematical component that they contributed to, the sacred geometry, was just phenomenal. So my point there was, from an Islamic perspective, from a Muslim historical perspective, Sarah, how do you view the influence, the place of that belief system in our current cultures today?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So what I just described was the influence that the Islamic and Muslim cultures had through the Middle Ages, okay, or particularly throughout the Middle East, Mesopotamia, and into Europe. Okay. So that perspective, how do you see the influence of that same belief system, that same culture, in today's global society?
I mean, every different culture has a pervasiveness into different lands and stuff, because you've got to remember, all these cultures, they don't live in a bubble. There's trade, there's travel. They're moving on ships. So
cultural influence.
some cultures may take like a concept of numbers and apply it to a different area from different cultures. Like in Islamic culture, they did a lot of things that you would relate to different other cultures, such as the Chinese do with astrology, or magic squares, or lots of different esotericisms and stuff. But I think that, I mean, in terms of modern culture and what we have nowadays, kind of tie back to Susie's point that because I believe in the Abrahamic religions, but in a way I come from a similar place of where Susie says that I'm given what I need to function throughout the day. Like stuff presents itself to me. It's like you learn something new, and it's like, oh, I apply it, somewhere else down the line. There's this not really a personal story that I have. Is I went to my grandmother's house, and she had in her she had like a old style dining room, and she had a it's not really a chandelier, it's like a light fixture, and it's like a really old one where it kind of had like little lampshades on it. so that type of old light fixture. So
real old, like the 70s.
Yeah. I mean, the house wasn't that old. I mean, so I mean, I'm standing on a chair and trying to screw these bulbs in, and we're just talking about light bulbs. like you do. Like you do. And I said something to effect of Thomas Edison, yeah. So and then my grandfather comes in, and my grandmother, she does not have like a traditional Western education upbringing. She's very much the old Asian lady, limited not college educated or anything like that. I mean, I guess what the equivalent would be like a high school education. I mean, she knew how to read and write and all that stuff. So he comes in and he's like, "Don't you know anything? It was Thomas Edison who he was not really chastising, but he was just, kind of in her face about it. Like, don't you know that Thomas Edison invented the light bulb and blah, blah, blah." And then she kind of like tries to make up for it. And she says, well, if he didn't do it, somebody else would have. That the concept that if Edison was not, able to receive the inspiration, or through his many, many, many experiments of trying to create a light bulb, that knowledge would be imbued to somebody else, and somebody else would do it.
Patents.
When he first tried light bulb and made he had to try several times before it worked. Really,
right.
Yeah,
and he had his processes, but I mean, as far as the creative, that's somewhat divinely inspired, in my opinion. But
well, Sarah, can I ask you something about that real quick?
Let me finish first.
Okay.
So in that if you look at it as, if we're assuming, if we say God, or the Akashic record, or every thought that's floating around us, and we're just able to tune in particular resonances and frequencies. If that ability is, if Edison didn't do it, would have somebody else would have, highly likely, considered how much we've advanced since then. With the radio, you had Marconi working on it, you had Alexander Graham Bell working on that stuff. I mean, there's several ideas and concepts that some people say in one country said, "Oh, we did this first," or another country said, "No, we did this first." And, you have that similar thought streams that are given their situation, or what's present as stimuli, is that they're able to create. And I mean, look where we've come with how far with technology.
Oh, sure.
So,
Oh yeah.
yeah, because it all builds on
Since
itself.
1947.
Even earlier than that. I mean, where would we be without math? You know, and we would have, you know, maybe a different form of number system. I mean, our traditional 1, 2, 3 comes from the, you know, Arabic language. But if you look at different cultures, like say in South America, they used a concept of, you know, of tying knots in forming quipus. So they have their own different forms of number systems. So,
and it's not only the number systems themselves, but it's also the way they have evolved. For example, the concept of zero that we use today in our math and our numerical system and the symbology of math was not available to the Greeks. The Pythagoreans knew it, but to your point about, and you said something that just it triggered a thought I wanted to ask you about. Let me phrase this. So the numerics and the math around what you just described as, you know, the way that, you know, people perceive things. Okay. Yeah. There's a set of data that you observe and you internalize and you memorize, whatever that is. But it's placed within the consciousness that you have within your mind. So that determines your perspective, what it is that you are perceiving and casting judgment and opinion and analysis, and that comes before all of that to that thing. So it goes back to so here's my question. The whole idea, the whole topic was about how do you determine something is true? How do you know something is true to you? Right?
Yeah.
And that sensation occurs through a series of mechanisms that have habits, natures, and characteristics. That experience that you have of whatever that might be, that you have that sense of truth, because it is a sense. It is nothing other than your speculative judgment after analysis for whatever amount of time and whatever data you got available. That is what you are feeling and thinking about for yourself as being that which is.
Yeah, I don't see it as a sense, though. I see it more as a choice. So.
Well, that's okay. So that's an interesting point. So choice I define choice as something that happens intellectually. It's something that happens in the mind, and you have in your mind perceived choices, and you make a choice of the choices or opportunities that you have. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay,
sure.
but sometimes you experience something that almost speaks directly to the soul, and
that's the gnosis that I mentioned last night. Feeling it in your bones.
You feel it so deeply and acknowledge it as so true that there's no denying it.
Exactly. So the real challenge, and to me, the opportunity and the magic that happens in the mind and in life and the reality that we inhabit is to be able to see as much as possible, make as informed decisions about what you see as possible, and then act upon those decisions. Because that's what we do every second of our consciousness. We are always not in the present, we are in the future. We are using the present as a starting point. And from there, we're projecting what we think may happen, or what the opportunities, the challenges, the what ifs, all those things that create that filter our thinking process. It filters it as we look to the next second. So we're always in the future. We're never really in the past. We're never in the past unless we use specific techniques. But we're always in the future. Go ahead.
Okay, there's one thing I don't. So based on what you both are saying is that truth is based on experience and senses, right?
Resonance. Yes.
Resonance, but I mean not just resonance, but having a
I struggle with that concept.
Yeah. Well, it's all of the senses that we have, our sensory capacity that we have biologically is information, right? It's either a plus or it's a negative or it's neutral. And that's just based on how we perceive it. If we had more information about whatever it is we're experiencing, we might add that data to our perception and have a more informed decision.
Sarah, were you going to say more about that? Did I cut you off? I didn't mean to.
No, you didn't cut me off, but I mean,
I did.
Yeah.
Sorry,
you cut me off.
Yeah, I own it. I got it.
Okay. So, I mean, as far as, the senses and, even at the most basic of levels, we know our senses can lie to us, essentially, quote unquote, lie to us.
Sure.
Everything can be, everything's not, literal or, I mean, to me, the truth is it's a matter of perspective and it's subjective. It's always subjective. So, I mean, depending on, your situation, the stimulus or what's around you. And it's all, interpretation of data, interpretation of data, how our brains will, apply it to whatever constructs or belief systems, all that, and how it kind of fits in. It's like a different type of filter. So,
and I think that, and I agree, but the one thing I would add and change in what you just said is that it's not the brain, it's the mind. It's once we
not
have
the organ,
this,
it's the
once we
soul in the
separate,
organ, so to speak.
Once we separate that concept in our brains and more importantly in our minds, then there's an entire realm, and this is what the mystery schools with the mystic arts. This is the knowledge that they've kept in perpetuity, so it would be available when it's time. And that is that the mind is where the magic is. The mind is where things happen. And once the mind is the intersection of the cosmic energy that exists that creates all. And you can put whatever definition you want on that you want. But that creates.
Ryan Gale says, how can one really tell if these experiences aren't just induced by chemicals released from the brain and the body?
They are, and they are assisted. Susie, what were you wanted to say something? I'm sorry.
I'm gonna. Something just hit me. I've been a manifester since I was way young. Because this sounds really creepy, but anyhow, victims of things or
creep us out.
In the middle of the night. Okay. When you're up in the middle of the night and you're just daydreaming as a child, and you worry about the shapes because you see things, because I have that thing where you see faces and everything, right?
Pareidolia.
Yeah, I have that terribly bad. Like I can see faces in anything. So
Scotty and I do. It's an artist trait.
Well, there was
I see it in cat litter. I see it in wallpaper.
Used to see these little cows, and they were like the daisy cows, and the curtains in the bedroom, and later there was a spook thing, but I don't really want to talk about that because I don't want to manifest that, because this is where I'm getting at. That was one of the first things I manifested was this thing, because you think too much. Okay, you think too much. I don't know if I manifested or if it was part of the house. Oh gosh, I guess I could tell the story, but
it sounds like you're trying to
I kind of want to tell the
thought
story.
form, like egregores.
But I don't want to. Okay, I don't know how to put protection over me before I start this. Okay, there, I know. Okay, hold on. It's close. I didn't even think it was close. So I'm going to do that smudging thing that people do. I don't always do that at all, but I'm going to do it this time. Okay.
Sure.
Why not? We'll just go ahead and do that.
Better safe
You're
than
protected,
sorry.
Susie. Go ahead.
Thank
Scotty,
you.
did you just open the scotch?
So I'm no,
I
bottle
thought I
that
heard that. I thought that was you.
No, that's my smudge stick.
It's your smudge stick that
put it in a little bottle and I can put it out.
Stick sounds like this.
It's all right. Did you hear the bottle?
There you go.
That's a little. Yeah, it was okay. Anyway, so
Hey, you capped that too quickly. Go, get back there.
Yeah.
yeah, I put it in my other thing. That's not good. Anyway, all right. So I'm a second grade, small town, Illinois, right? I shouldn't even say Illinois. I shouldn't even give it any power. All right, small town. Upstairs, I hear what I think is my father downstairs. I'm sleeping in the same bed. I got my Siamese cat with me. I'm sleeping in the same bed with my sister. And I hear what sounds like maybe mom in the kitchen rummaging around. This is really scary. This is just so dumb. I don't. Okay,
you're with friends. You're
all
with
right,
friends.
all right. This
hear
is
it.
my second grade. This is my. You never know when you're a kid. This is the difference between did I manifest it, did I lie, and is it real? Are you ready? I'm 7 years old. Okay, I'm also a victim of being messed with by my custodial.
Sure.
By my.
I understand.
Not my mom. Okay, I'm not gonna manifest that either.
Yeah.
All right. So onward.
Move along.
So you hear these footsteps of what you make as a loved one in the downstairs, making run here in the kitchen drawer, and I put the silverware away for mom. That's what I do, and I know the drawers there are being opened and closed. I mean that's in my opinion because this drawer makes a squeak and it's right next to the drainer, where all the knives and the silverware are. Right. Okay, so you hear the drawer open and close and squeak. Then you hear heavy footsteps, and I think it's my dad coming up the steps because it's heavy footsteps. Big thump, thump. Here comes and I'm wide awake, and the kitty cat's awake, and he's laying there, and his name is Charlie, and he's laying there, and he's kind of like, you can keep hearing the steps. And I didn't think nothing of it until I heard my dad snoring in the other room, and I hear, and these footsteps are coming. Do you know what I'm saying? And I hear footsteps.
Yeah.
And in the doorway comes this big black shape that really wasn't as tall as I thought it should be for my father at all.
Shh.
You understand? Sorry.
Yep.
But that's who I thought. The heavy footsteps. Okay. You think it's his boots, his work boots. Okay. And in the doorway stands this. Oh gosh, you guys. I got goosebumps all over me. Anyway. Red.
You're fine.
It's a red glowy. It's red, glowy, black and red with white eyes. And it's just glowing. A glowy red. You can see that it's red. It's not just black. It's red. That's the color is stark to me. The cat is growling. God, I'm getting very hard. Anyway, listen. I haven't told this in a while. Anyway. Okay, so Susie. So I'm standing, and the cat's growling. I'm laying there, or was it? I can't even remember which one of it was. It might have been red. She might have been between me and it, and I'm because I'm sleeping by the window. That's what it was. All right, I'm sleeping by the window. The cat's in between us. This thing has a knife. It does. It has the butcher knife. It has the knife we put away at the dinner table. The mom cut the roast beef with. And I'm just can't talk. I can't move. I can't speak. I can't do shit. And this thing's getting closer. It's like everything is in slow motion, right? It's like, how long is this thing going to take? What is going on here? Go away. I can't move. I can't scream. I hear dad snoring and I can't move. It's like sleep paralysis, like, right? And it's so terrifying just feeling it again. That's why I don't tell it very often. It's about to be 25 years since I told this story. Anyway, the cat's growling really loud. I don't know how mom and dad don't hear the cat. I feel the cat's claws digging into me. And all of a sudden, he just jumps on this thing. Charlie just jumps on this thing. And the cat screams, does that cat thing, like, you know what I mean? Like, the whole thing. No parents wake up. I can't move. The thing stands there and reaches up to its eye. It's one of its wide eyes, and it's all red now, just like the rest of it. Very creepy. Goes to the bathroom. You hear it walk. It goes away. I'm at this point just can't even look. You know what I'm saying? Sure. It goes to the bathroom. You hear the faucet come on. You hear the footsteps go downstairs. You hear the drawer open and close. And that was it. I did not tell my mother this story for 5 years. My mother's recount of this is she found a cut towel with blood on it in the bathroom and never knew why. That's all I got.
Huh. You were how old when that happened?
7.
7, okay.
Yeah. That was just
all I could say is it's a really missing Rowan's at a sleepover today.
But did I manifest that? Did I create that? Just being scared little girl, seeing shapes in the did I manifest that from my all of my surroundings of situation? Do you know, did I call that? Because later in life I see other things. I don't see them now.
Well, I don't know that a
so I would say from my experience with the paranormal.
Like that because when you're a child like that, you don't have the experience to I think manifest. I think a child, it can be an experiencer and see those things and experience what's happening. I don't think you as a 7-year-old, I look at my own 7-year-old.
So
I don't think she could manifest something out of nothing, but that doesn't mean she isn't going to get something that affects her and that she can experience. Yeah.
I mean, I was reading Nancy Drew by then.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
I mean, a lot of it. Lots of Nancy Drew.
Well, there you go.
The first book I ever read was Alice in Wonderland Through the Looking Glass.
And somebody might come along and say, well, you had an overactive imagination, so you created that was a chemical.
But my experience from paranormal is people that go into a situation expecting a demon will find a demon.
Exactly.
Yes.
But how about if I'm not looking for it? Okay, in my first, I'm going to make this real short so that I can get to the, how do you say it, quick of it. My first marriage, I had a lot of head trauma. I also heard a lot of audio that I didn't want there.
Like clear audio?
Like, no.
Clear audience?
Like millions of voices. Not just one or two that are fucking with your head, right? Like, oh, you're ugly or whatever. And I get that. No. This is just so many voices. You think you're in a room and they won't shut up.
Sure.
And you can't. And if somebody's trying to talk to me, I wish they would go one at a time. But no, it wasn't like that. And then later, I mean, I saw little things other than that thing in the doorway. But later, I saw here, and I don't even want to, because it's not allowed here. None of this is allowed here. I'm a goddess now. But I saw things that I didn't invite with my eyes open or my eyes closed in the darkness in this house, in the upstairs in the room. The same room I was shook in. I told you that story about being shook in it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I saw all these faces and they wouldn't quit. It's like the poltergeist thing. Now, I do have a photographic memory, but I didn't invite these things. And it would be one after another, after another. And these were with no voices because, see, I'm telling you, when I went to see the shrink, I told her about the voices.
See, that's what I mean. You're not conjuring this and manufacturing it.
No,
you are
right. I might not be. I might be a conduit. Or and I am an empath where I feel things. I do. I can feel things. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I can also have the power now that I know because, see, I had this little vision one time when I got really too stoned. One time, I had to lay down. I told my girlfriend, I have to lay down now. I'm just spinning. And I had been talking about the well, I don't even want to go there with that. But anyway, it was a really another spooky story. It wasn't personal. But it was something that, and I was really feeling things that I really didn't want to feel, right?
Right.
And here off in the distance, I'm having these little visuals, and it was blue and purple and just something, just a stupid little visual way off in the distance. And I'm thinking, I just want to enjoy this. And here comes the faces. Here they come. The spooks coming from the sides, trying to like fog it. And in my newfound goddessdom, because this is Wayne Steiger helped me get to this point. And I just said, I saw my hand go out in the dark and just wave those spooks off. Literally wave them off, man. And they have not bothered me since. Now, if I look for them, I can find them easy. I can sit and have visions where I see little pictures way off in the darkness. And man, like I've seen people in the woods pushing around wheelbarrows and shit. Like pictures, like little windows of clouds way off in the distance. I see these pictures in my head. Now, this is not really meditating or anything. I'm just daydreaming in my head before I go to sleep. You know what I mean? And when I dream, sometimes it's quite vivid. Those can be quite horrifying. But I won't get into that tonight. But I'm telling you, you can get rid of these things. And this is how I felt I was a manifester, because how did I unmanifest them? I guess that's what I was going for, Professor. Because I think that because if I can unmanifest them, I can also bring them to me. And of course, I will not.
Sure.
I think, well, if you think about the way that it's manifested, Susie.
Yes.
Then if you just reverse that process, then ergo there you do.
And now I manifest other things.
Well, you can't ignore the frequencies and the entities that inhabit those frequencies. You can't ignore them, so you have to deal with them.
Yes.
And the best way to deal with them is to be able to understand their frequency and then consciously, mentally avoid that frequency.
Yeah, they're not allowed to haunt me.
Well, and yeah,
not anymore.
However it works for you, but it is a perspective that you have in your mind.
Sure.
It is something that affects that process, affects everything that we do. So whether you're battling demons or you're trying to achieve the ultimate and everything in between, the focus of the mind is where that reality happens. And it's where that focus is. What is in your landscape of awareness that you examine as you make, you gather data, you analyze it, you go through the process of adapting to it whichever way you need to based on the information you have. But at the end of the day, it's all speculation. You're just doing what everyone else is doing and trying to figure out what is this reality in which we inhabit. Yeah. And it's such a nuanced experience in reality that it can be very challenging, especially when you have so many options to consider. You can look at this theology, this philosophy, this scientific method, this model, this whatever you want. And all of it is nothing more than computational speculation. It's something that someone else that has been given, as we were talking about earlier, they've been given the authority or the right to define that which is. And so we get that data and we go, okay, well, academia or the sciences or the whatever belief system says this about that. And what are those that's? Those are the things that make a difference, that are our key filters. What is the filter that we want in order to make sure that we safely and productively navigate the reality we're in? And that can come in any form you can imagine. Again, from theologies, philosophies, scientific systems, methodologies, it doesn't matter. It's all a part of the fabric of reality that we experience. And the only way, trying to maybe in some long ass way around Harvey's barn, come back to the point of this discussion where we started, and that is, how do you know when something is truth? You only know it when you feel it at the moment, and with that feeling, you know that may change. Because if the minute you accept anything as dogmatic, concrete, done, and otherwise, something's going to come along and shake that shit up.
Well,
And
it's like what we do. Our fictions are filled with it. Our literature is filled with it. The things we write about, the things we talk about, the things we experience. I might even say, I'm a pragmatic sort of fellow. I need to see it, touch it, taste it, feel it, shake hands with it, converse with it before I believe that it's real. But then you've got lines that, I've written in books and things we've read in old stories. It would say, and he looked out to the sea and knew nobody believed him, but he was convinced in his heart that this was true. And, and that's it. That's the feelings you have will convince us of things. Susie Q, I was going to mention somewhere along the way, too, that you should hear my 10-year-old Rowan. About a year ago, she came up with the story of the woman in the red dress in her room at night. And I asked her, were you dreaming? I don't even ask that of you. I don't think you were dreaming by your experience and your reaction to it and the memory. But she was scared enough, but not overly scared. And I think, Uncle Dave, you've heard her talk about that too. She said she saw the woman in the red dress in her room. And sometimes she's been scared to sleep alone in her room. She's only just getting to that point now at age 10 where she'll sleep alone in her room. But all of this stuff I also look at, and I'm not trying to throw a deliberate wrench in the gear at all to try to change the topic, but a thought occurred to me. Yeah, I am. A thought occurred to me way early on in the evening. It's, what if it's all like, and only Star Trek people are going to get this reference. What if God is like Q? And God, what if it is all, and this is what we were taught, a form of this back when I was in seminary. What was John Wycliffe's old sermon from the 1700s that was a classic called Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God? And all the evangelists we had in the Baptist, they were like, take a walk with me, if you will, down the halls of hell, and I will show you what you'll face if you don't accept Jesus into your heart. And that was the tone they would use with us. And
these preachers seem to spend a lot of time in hell. They could describe it very well.
Really. But there's something very interesting. And this isn't a new thought. We've all heard variations of this. What if God is like Q? What if everything, all our imaginings, all our feelings, all our personal experiences are all things that God pretty much looks at and says, I don't care. I own you. I made you. You're mine. I'm not a God of love. I'm a God of holiness. I'm not a God of love and holiness. I'm a God that's omnipotent above all and everything else. And I don't give a good goddamn what you think or what you feel or what you've experienced in all my vast creation that I made. I can wipe you all out in the snap of a finger. And you are mine to do with as I will. What did God say in Isaiah 55? How much higher are my ways than your ways? And my thoughts than your thoughts? In essence, he was saying, don't try to think you know who I am, because you never will. And there is a piece of that I bring along with me that says something like, if there is a creator, or remember when we were talking about the jinn again a few weeks ago, how the jinn said, God is not the creator. The creator is who we refer to as the originator, different from God that you worship. What if the originator, who created everything that is in existence, what if he is actually the one that did that? And almost put an individual to it rather than the great logos that's out there. The nebulous concept that is the originator or the creator.
So you're saying anthropomorphize?
No. Let me finish what I'm saying. Then
the identity.
What if that creator is someone who says, "I am so high above your ways." That originator, we can't. every imagining of the thoughts and intents of our heart, as the scripture had said once, is nothing. It doesn't mean a damn thing, because the Creator is someone who says, I can do whatever I want with you. So don't think you can equate yourself to me. Now, that's even outside of the theology I was taught.
Well, that brings in the whole question of love and forgiveness and everything else.
It does.
Well, wait a minute.
Are love and
that doesn't make any
forgiveness
sense.
human qualities, or are they qualities of the originator?
And that was my point. This has all been anthropomorphized. We call God him or he, and it's all in all the monotheistic ones, belief systems. But if you look at any of the belief systems from Southeast Asia, India, the Hindu belief systems, which is, by the way, where I think a lot of the jinn stuff we talked about a while back came from. So there's an understanding of the way in which
bingo, Wayne Lucky Smith, by the way.
There would be there's a continuum of information that is consistent, exposing and through the expression of the characteristics, the nature and the habits, not the laws, not the rules. Laws and rules, again, are anthropomorphic. But as I've waxed on ad nauseum, when you look at the various mythos of the different civilizations and what they consider their philosophical religion, all of the different components that made up their society, and few people realize that Hammurabi scrolled all of the stuff that we basically have our society built on back about, they think, 3,000 or 4,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And you look at it and you go, okay, well, that's actually the same system. And it's like what Sarah was talking about earlier, where the numeric system and the alphabetic system that we use in the Western world came from that Islamic proliferation that I was talking about during the Middle Ages. So, scrolling back, the way, how do you determine something is true?
Yep.
So, since everything is speculation, and the only speculation that's important is your own, because you're always going to come up with some kind of idea, some thought, some belief that you're going to absorb into your being as a part of the way you frame the reality you interact with. And if it's religious, there's all kinds of very common boundaries and characters and lanes and shit that you need to adhere to. If it's scientific, there's all kinds of accredited this and that by expert this and that and PhD, whatever, that says this is what the definitive of whatever you're inquiring about is. And all of that is being completely re-examined, and it's been coming up wanting. So when you look at what you have as your data set for reality, how you interact with the world that you experience, there's a certain amount of data that you have built whatever belief and truth you feel in yourself. And that data is constantly being updated. So if you're not checking and making sure the data you hold has not been updated, then you're missing out on the data that's been updated. Ergo, you are less informed. Right? You're less informed about that which you believe. So you have to be in a constant gathering mode. You have to be diligent and intelligent about that which you search for and consume, because the consumption of that information to help you validate the reality you inhabit is going to change all the time. There is no more fundamental, foundational substrate of any belief system or any scientific, materialistic, spiritual. There's none of those have been found to be absolute bona fide truth, and two, that they aren't constantly changing because of new information.
Right.
Some are less, some are more. So would that
preclude there being any absolute truth?
I would say yes. And it depends on the use and how absolute truth is used. What's the
Would you
perspective
say
of the
absolute
question?
truth is that there are no absolute truths?
The key is the question.
It's subjective.
Yeah. Subjective.
It's all subjective. So you're going to find that everything you experience is going to be subjective at the moment. And you have to realize that subjectivity includes the only constant in consciousness in the cosmos, which is change. There's going to be a constant change with what you know, and that change, in guaranteed even more so now than ever before, could be so profound that it will switch off of it'll flip a switch in your paradigm that'll make you
flip
stop
you
and
off.
go, what the fuck is that?
Right.
Because you will go, oh, there is a change here, the magnitude and import that makes me have to rethink my perspective of reality.
Yeah.
And that happens all the time, but it's accelerated. We're now in a place where this energy wave, we've got a scalar wave, a galactic wave that has been impacting the energetics, the electromagnetic, in particular, energetics of the solar system, the region of space we're in, the solar system, and all the planets. Okay. We have been in that, and that is continuing. And it's got fluctuations as it passes through. But that is the reason for all the bizarre things that we're seeing that have been hijacked into a narrative to try to tug on emotional constructs for reasons that are not backed by science. And the thing about science, and this is the thing that, and this is in knowledge in general, but it's particularly been weaponized to relate for science, is that science is always asking questions. So if you're going to follow the science, you got to follow the questions. And the other thing is that people don't realize science, the scientific method is actually designed to disprove things. It's not to prove things, it's to disprove them. You have a hypothesis, which you make into a theory. You construct all the instruments and equipment to go and test this theory. So part of the problem is you're building something to find what you're looking for. And that is very valid. It's acceptable. The technology that we have now is mind-boggling. It ain't George Jetson, which, by the way, was
way past George
apparently
Jetson.
born a week or two ago, according to the cartoon, right? It's not that level, but it is. All of the technology to make that happen is already here. And the idea of the exposure of knowledge is what is the most profound experience that we're all going through. And the most effective way that I've come up with at this point is to ride that change, go with the flow, understand there's a whole new river being cut here. It's kind of like the end of the last ice age. And what I was saying the other night, that we are experiencing a 21st century renaissance. It is really an explosion of knowledge and information that is going to transform not only the reality that we inhabit, but the way we experience that reality. The experience we have in knowing something is true is going to go through some major upgrades. It's going to go through some shit that people are not going to be ready for. They're not going to be prepared for, but it's coming. And there won't be, you'll either be standing there on the beach watching the wave come and decide you're just going to let the wave take you, or you were smart enough to keep an eye on the data and the frequencies and realize, hey, that wave out there is coming in. I think it might want to move in a little bit. And there's all kinds of extremes of both sides of that awareness.
Yes.
But that's what's important. It's really a mind-boggling transformation of humanity in the way that we perceive consciousness. It's going to be something a la of Atlantis and the
brings
Atlantean
me
things.
back once again to Richard Feynman, who I have quoted many times in my own books. those of you who don't know, quick astrophysicist, theoretical physicist, contemporary of Oppenheimer and Einstein and so on. And you can hear some of his lectures. He could have been a humorist if he wasn't an astrophysicist.
He got down and funky a few times.
He did. And I like what he said. There's a great video, and I may find this and repost it to my Facebook. My daughters showed this to me years ago, which first introduced me to Feynman and his thinking 10 years ago, at least. And he said, to think, he says, what I do, I study the universe. And he had this, New York, Jewish, that accent. When I look out there and I think, and I'm here to study, and so on, he's talking like that. He says, I study the universe. And he says, for me, the primary, and I'm misquoting him, I'm sure, so I'm paraphrasing a bit. He says, for me, the most important thing is to doubt, because when I doubt, I ask questions. And he says, in my questions, he says, the only thing, he says, I'm concerned about, he says, God, that God, in all of his glory, all these manifestations we're told about God, the different manifestations of different religions. He's not saying he doesn't believe them. He just says, to think that God came here. He came here to this place in the universe. He says, seems too local, too provincial for me, too colloquial.
That's assuming he's only in one place.
Yes. And he said, that seems too colloquial for me, that his message was here for this planet. And he said, so for me, he expands, I'm doubting and asking questions. And he says, I don't fear doubting. He says, frankly, and this flies a bit in the face of what I say when I say I want to know. He says, I don't fear not knowing things. He says, there's going to be a million things I don't know, mixed in with the million things I do know. And he said, but for me, not knowing, he says, and he didn't house this in a fear. He said, I just don't want to go through my life believing one thing was so and ending up finding out I was wrong all along in the end. And so that's kind of how I think about it. I don't fear the doubt. I don't have a fear of death. I don't have a fear of God, mostly because it's all undefined for me. It's not as defined as it was. Boy, Professor Barr, weren't we smarter when we were kids? We knew everything. Dave, I say that, and Susie and Sarah, I say that to y'all. We were so smart. We knew everything.
Yep.
And I equate
so
it to
Rowan tells us all the time.
Yeah, Rowan tells us all the time, you're old and dumb. And so it's like the title of that one Star Trek episode in the original series. I got to bring it up because it's esoteric enough in its message. It says, for the world is hollow, for I have touched the sky. I used to describe the way I would think in Christianity in my view of God as it's like the sky above us. That's everything. This is our universe is here. Until you get to that and you crack it open and you find out it's like an eggshell and you crack up and you look out and there's a whole something else. The world is hollow, for I have touched the sky. There's something much more out there. And so that's what I would say in the context of my old pastor friend telling me, maybe God's not trying to teach you a lesson. Maybe it's just the way things are. I used to ask him, what if God is either one of two things? I said, he's either way smaller than I think he is, meaning a construct of anthropology, a construct of the human mind, or God is much, much bigger than we think he is, which would be that opposite, that Q type of originator that perhaps is so much larger than us. There is no concept of how big that God is. So,
Scotty, to tag on to what you're saying, what's interesting is if you look at, and I think what part of what we're seeing is a convergence, a confluence of spirituality and science, and that science is it's leaning more towards creating at least mathematical systems to define this thing that's been elusive and defined in a number of ways called spirituality and whatever that energy is. But when you think about it, the terminology is certainly very similar, if not the same. In space, in science, when they define space, they say, well, it's incorporeal. It's not something that's there. And you look at the philosophical and theological definitions, when they define God, God is incorporeal. There is no definition, no thing where he isn't. So space and God are essentially the same in those two systems, right?
Yes.
You also say, well, God is everywhere, right? He's omnipresent in the theological systems. Well, in the scientific systems, what is space? Space is everywhere. Can you think of a place where space is not? And so you have commonality of the definitions of where of this all being existence of universe. Now, placing a figurehead at the top and giving it a whole bunch of male patriarchal kind of constructs and characteristics is like, well, I don't know. That seems like a projection to me. So I'm thinking, if the base constructs of space and being omnipresent are both the same in spirituality and in theology and in science, then I see that as a common ground, right? Well, going back to the whole concept, I was thinking about this earlier, and I think it's important to share. From the standpoint of subjectivity, right? If we start with everything is subjective to the individual, then it's your empirical perspective reality that matters, and that's it. Nothing else.
Yeah.
You can
if it's
only,
all subjective.
Yeah, and you can only accept and adopt and manage and mitigate from others' speculations as you please. That is a part of the existence of consciousness and choice, because you have different options with which to consider. So when you think about,
it's all subjective,
right? It's all subjective. Everything is subjective.
Yeah, I do take one issue with that because there's a difference between commonality and a causal relationship. So
say that again.
There's a difference between commonality and a causal relationship.
What
kind of
relationship?
Causal.
Oh, causal.
Okay.
Causal. So if you look at things like synchronicity, when you've experienced things like synchronicity, just because the first time you experience an event and you recognize it as synchronicity, that doesn't mean it's a cause of where that other thing is coming from, because they're supposedly independent of each other, but they line up. Like if you see a particular theme or object or set of numbers or whatever you want to call.
I would define that as a set of frequency fields with individual signatures that are on some kind of flow and path with not only the directionality or the trajectory of wherever that energy is going. And that might be a little woo, but in the simplest form, that's what it is to me. So these are frequencies that are flowing through. And if you are aware of them, then your ability to at least with the most positive outcome, navigate through those streams and fields of energy that are flowing through, right? And that's where I think paranormal happens. I think that's where a lot of the things that Susie talked about actually happen. They happen in that frequency realm, that frequency set. And you can either dial into them or you can not dial into them. And even if they are, especially if they are something that is a part of your environment, then that's something you want to be aware of and at a minimum preclude, if not protect yourself from those energies. Because those energies, all energies go wherever the hell they want. and through whatever mechanism, influence, or otherwise they go through. But at a minimum, there's larger cycles of energy that they all grab onto and manifest through. So if you're aware of those frequency sets, at least the fundamental spectrum that they all exist in, then your ability to navigate them more successfully is greatly enhanced, because you're able to mitigate the negative parts and maximize the positive stuff. And I think that's part of the problem that we have with trying to figure out, when you say, what is the question? How do you answer the question of what is truth? Well, the first question for me is why? Why do you need to know how to determine the truth? And it doesn't take more than a minute or so for anybody that's got any unclogged cognitive reasoning to realize that, well, that's because that'll be really important for what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's like kind of fundamental to how I'm existing in this reality and the choices I see in front of me. Because if we are always living in the future, we're never, the present is only the thought of the thought of the future. And that is to me, it's a fundamental way in which consciousness functions. And when you have that, or when you think of your reality in that way, then you can see all the choices and options and data sets you're going to use to make a decision, because that's what you do. Mm-hmm. We are all predictive in our consciousness, because we're always we're in the moment looking at the future. We're in the moment, always looking at the future. Even if you're just totally zoned and meditating and in a state of samadhi, you are in that place knowing that in the future you're going to be in that place. So that's why it's incredibly important that the systems that you use to define and navigate the reality you inhabit and experience, knowing it's all subjective, that all of the information you use to experience that reality is vetted as best as you can. You're never going to be perfect. You're never going to get it all. But you, at least if you go through the process of self-examination, which is a lost concept, and even where it's used, it's mangled and manipulated and abused. But self-examination of trying to figure out, what is it that you believe, that you feel is true? And does any of that information have any updates? Is there anything additional that you didn't consider when you made the choice to believe something is true? And 9 times out of 10, my experience is you're going to find a whole bunch of stuff, depending on how far you go, how your curiosity fertilizes your field of awareness in this massive field of imagination. Once you feel that, then it's like, well, Sarah was talking earlier about its brain overload. It's mind, like, yeah, it can be, but it's also extremely liberating. Yeah. It's way beyond any of the individual systems of thought and being. It is a collective of all. It is something that is beyond the definitions we have. And that was the thing that I was trying to make a point about with space and God, depending on how you look at it from either belief system. One of the things that attracted me to the Tao and Taoism is that you are just one with it. And the first statement in the Tao Te Ching is that which can be described as the Tao is not the Tao. The whole concept being that the Tao is undescribable. It is unintelligible, just like God is. It is something all of the medieval philosophers and theologians, when they would describe God, is that he was unintelligible. They would put a caveat in their writings that what we use to describe God is not God. It's just the only thing we have.
Well, there it is. There it is. It's what we've got. Yeah. Well, here's what we're going to do. That was well said, Professor. We are going to wrap it up for tonight. It's 11:30 Central Standard Time. And while this could be a great conversation where we're sitting around a fire or in front of a fireplace with our respective drinks and smokables, as John Denver said, sit and pass the pipe around and talk of poems and prayers and promises. We're going to wrap it up for tonight. I think we haven't answered any questions to their fullest extent. The question will always be there. How do we know what's right? How do we know what's right for us? How do we know what's truth for us? I have, on one hand, I can say there are things that I will not accept because I can't experience them. On the other hand, I will say there are things I haven't experienced, but I believe them because I feel them to be so. And that's the way a lot of us approach this. So I guess all we can do is like Susie Q said, she prays, she asks. And I think if I could modify that a bit and say, even the biblical text said, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives it. So is God then the construct that we've made him in our religions, or is he the thing that we experience in the privacy of our own closet, so to speak? And so for now, let's kind of leave it there. There's so much more to talk about this, but I think if we keep going tonight, we're just going to start beating a dead horse a little bit. And I want to approach this. We'll do this another time, approach it a little fresher with more fresh material and start all over again. So thank you, Susie Q, for being in here. I appreciate your coming in.
It was
and
fun.
we'll see you next time. And Sarah Yousuf, I'm glad you came in, even though you only spent a sum total of about 4 minutes talking between all of us.
Right.
I'm glad that you were here. Your presence is always good to have here, and I like having you here. So you have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night, Sarah.
Good night, Sarah.
Thanks, Susie.
And Professor Bauer, I shall let you go along your merry way, and I will see you again a little later. And we'll, not today, a little later in the near future. So
it's been great as always. Thank you very much.
It's been fun. I appreciate your wisdom. I appreciate
Goodbye,
the stuff
Prof.
you have to share.
Dave, you too.
All right. Oh, and I let Dave go before you. I pushed his button. I meant to push yours. Dave, good night. I love you, brother.
Push my button.
Right. And I'll push yours too, Professor Bauer. Love you, brother.
Love you.
All right, guys. That's it. It's all we've got for tonight. And I hope you enjoyed yourself. These are great conversations, and I like them. I hope you get something out of this that means something to you. And I appreciate your being here, your taking your time to be here and to join me. That means a lot to me. And if you're not a member of this channel, hit the join button. That's how you can help maintain it a bit. And on that note, thanks for being here. Think, use your minds, keep your hearts open. Talk soon, live long, and prosper.